Russian assault on Pokrovsk. How drones changed everything, more than 30 vehicles destroyed. Multiple assault waves stopped cold before reaching the trenches. Around Pokrovsk, Russian infantry and tanks are vanishing on approach, not at the front line itself. This isn't a traditional battle, where Ukrainian drones control every strip of forest, road, and open field around the city. Russian forces are trying a different approach near Pokrovsk. They've ditched the large armored columns that got obliterated in earlier offensives. Instead, they're using mixed formations: light vehicles, mobile infantry, and tanks moving in support. The plan looks smart on paper. Infantry moves on motorcycles, quad bikes, and light trucks. Tanks stay back to provide fire support rather than leading the charge. The idea is simple: move fast, stay small, reduce exposure time. But reality is harsher. These columns get detected early, tracked from a distance, and hit while still moving, before any assault can fully form. Instead of close combat, attacks collapse during the approach phase as drones spot movement and trigger strikes that break momentum in minutes. The central question isn't about manpower or armor anymore. It's whether any force can approach a contested city when the air above turns every step forward into a visible target. This structure reflects a focus on movement control rather than direct confrontation. Assaults come in short bursts over many days, not one continuous push. Each wave tests a different route, probes Ukrainian reactions, searches for gaps in coverage. The rhythm is fast, with little pause between attempts. Commanders believe pressure itself creates opportunity, so there's constant motion on the battlefield even when no breakthrough occurs. But there's a fatal flaw. A motorcycle team or foot patrol lacks the protection larger formations once provided. When one element gets stopped, there's often no nearby support to absorb the shock or change the situation. And when infantry slows down or hits resistance, tanks are forced to move forward to stabilize things. That movement happens under time pressure, which limits careful route selection. Once tanks advance, their size and sound make concealment impossible, and they shift from protection to liability. What unfolds near Pokrovsk isn't a single failed push. It's a chain of moves that keeps tightening the space for error. A delayed vehicle, a unit that hesitates, a route that suddenly feels exposed can shift everything in seconds. At that point, danger doesn't come from the trench ahead. It comes from the sky above, where movement draws attention. And once that attention locks on, the fight starts long before any soldier reaches the line. Ukrainian control of approach routes is built on constant FPV surveillance. Drones stay airborne across forests, fields, and secondary paths, creating a layered picture of movement rather than waiting for contact at the trench. Different drones rotate to keep eyes on the same spaces as daylight and weather shift. The result is a living map where changes stand out quickly, even when units try to move slowly or blend in. When Russian groups begin to move, detection often happens at the first stage, not the last. A small cluster forming near a tree line, a vehicle stopping longer than planned, or a track appearing where none existed can trigger attention from above. Once that attention starts, drones don't rush to strike. Their main task is to hold contact and confirm direction, speed, and intent. Units that believe they're unseen keep moving along planned routes, unaware their path is already marked. By the time they sense danger, options have narrowed. Turning back can be as risky as moving forward. Forests and open ground around Pokrovsk once offered cover through distance, but drone control stripped that protection away. Tree lines now help drones measure movement, rather than hide it. Open fields create clear contrast between static ground and anything moving across it. What appears safe at ground level looks fully exposed from above. Once Russian units slow down or pause, drones move into strike mode. FPV attacks begin as soon as groups hesitate near tree lines or field edges. After the first hit, movement becomes cautious and broken. Small groups stop to listen, scan, or wait for orders that arrive too late. Those pauses don't reduce danger because drones use that time to line up follow-on attacks. But there's a second layer. Once a target is confirmed, drones guide indirect fire. They stay overhead and send live position updates to mortar teams and artillery units, allowing Ukrainian crews to engage targets they can't see from the ground. Rounds are adjusted in real time based on drone feedback, until impacts land close enough to force movement or cause losses. This is especially effective when Russian units try to hide after an FPV strike. Infantry moves into tree lines or shell holes, hoping to wait out the danger. From above, the drone tracks these positions and marks them for follow-up fire. Mortar rounds land around the area, pushing soldiers out of cover or pinning them in place. As impacts get closer, units are forced to move again, often into open ground where FPV drones return. This creates pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. FPV drones threaten from above and close range while mortars arrive from a distance. Russian units can't focus on a single threat because reacting to one exposes them to another. The effect on timing is critical. Assaults that rely on speed lose momentum once indirect fire begins. Communication suffers as radio traffic increases with loss reports and guidance requests, which delays decisions. By the time Russian units reach the outer edge of Ukrainian positions, many have already taken losses or burned time escaping guided fire. Some groups turn back while others arrive fragmented and disorganized. At that stage, the assault no longer has clear shape or purpose. What remains is small elements reacting to threats rather than advancing toward an objective. Russian tanks entered the fight after several infantry pushes stalled. As small units reported losses and delays, armored vehicles were ordered forward to cover withdrawal routes and reopen movement corridors. The tanks moved along the same forest edges and open lanes that drones had already been watching. From the air, the change was obvious because heavier vehicles left stronger visual and thermal traces. As tanks rolled forward, their pace dropped to match infantry ahead. They slowed near tree lines, paused at crossings, adjusted position to cover soldiers regrouping after FPV strikes. These short stops were visible from above. Within minutes, Ukrainian operators knew where the armor was, how fast it was moving, which routes it was using. FPV drones approached from behind and flanks, aiming at weaker angles, rather than the front. Drones struck close enough to force tanks to halt or change direction. Crews responded by backing away or stopping to reassess, which left infantry without moving cover. When one tank was forced to withdraw early, infantry units lost their main protection. Soldiers who'd been advancing behind armor now faced open ground without cover. Movement paused as leaders tried to reorganize groups that had split during engagement. That pause exposed the area to further strikes. As losses mounted, additional tanks were committed. These vehicles followed the same routes as the first group, which were already known and tracked. The presence of tanks also increased activity behind the assault line. Fuel trucks, ammunition carriers, recovery vehicles moved forward to support damaged armor. That rear area traffic created new targets for drones watching supply routes. By the time tanks pulled back, the assault no longer had clear direction. The original objective wasn't reached, and the force had taken losses without gaining ground. This sequence repeated across multiple attempts. Each time tanks were brought in to support infantry, they entered an area already controlled from the air. Instead of restoring momentum, Their arrival marked the point where the push began to unravel. Russian operations began to slow once repeated assaults failed, and attention shifted toward keeping units supplied for another attempt. Supply movement started in short runs rather than long convoys. Vehicles moved in small numbers, paused near tree lines, then continued when the route looked clear. But the same paths were often used more than once, and patterns formed. Ukrainian drones adjusted their focus. Instead of staying only over assault lanes, they followed movement behind the line where vehicles gathered. Repeated trips along the same tracks made these routes easier to spot and track. Several supply vehicles were intercepted before reaching forward units. Some were hit while moving, others turned back after realizing they were being followed. Infantry groups waited longer for ammunition and medical support. Wounded soldiers remained in place. Damaged vehicles stayed where they were. Modern warfare is no longer decided by who brings more soldiers or heavier tanks. The battle around Pokrovsk shows how control of information, control of the low sky, and control of timing now shape whether any force can even reach its objective. Russian infantry advances were detected early. FPV drones broke formations before contact. Tanks were drawn in and exposed. Supply routes were disrupted before pressure could be sustained. The result wasn't a dramatic breakthrough or collapse, but a steady loss of momentum that stopped attacks far from the trenches. Russia still has options. Tactics can change. Counter-drone systems can expand. Formations can adapt to reduce exposure. But each adjustment brings higher costs, slower movement, and new risks in a battlefield where visibility is constant and reaction time is short. The larger question goes beyond Pokrovsk itself. Can combined infantry and armor formations survive when every movement is watched from above? Is this a temporary stall shaped by local conditions, or the early signal of a deeper shift that armies worldwide will face? This might be a preview of how future wars are fought across many fronts.